Hello everyone, so this is a quick tutorial on how to make your own custom Nineball Seraph to fight in Armored Core for Armored Core 2 Another Age. No, I'm not redoing the take for that. So long story short, I am going to also include in the description of this video these two files that you will need, which will basically help you explain how to do it. And it's very simple. Maybe after messing around with half an hour, you can do anything you want with this video because it's going to. I did all of the hard work for you. So, long story short, to explain what it is, this is a PNACH or however the hell you say it into the cheats file of of your PCSX2 emulator. This is working the same way that a Game Shark or an Action Replay would do. This is not editing the game itself. This does not change your game file. Messing the file name up or even moving it will immediately undo any change that you're doing here because you aren't editing the game. The way that these codes were found out, if you want to do it for a different game or on your own, was done using the Cheat Engine program. Please note, I'm not going to teach you how to use Cheat Engine here. That is a whole multi-hour long, much harder thing that they have their own tutorials for. But basically, when you have the game open, you attach the Cheat Engine to it, and it gives you the RAM, and there's ways to search for stuff. Now, if you're trying to use Cheat Engine for an offline game to have fun and fool around, go for it. Do not use it for an online game. An example, if I tried to mod my AC's health and did a PvP in this game and the other person didn't have the same cheat code to say that, it's going to desync and not work. And any anti-cheat engine is going to catch Cheat Engine and ban you from that program. It does not go through anti-cheat. You will get caught. The site even says it's not what it's for. Please don't do it. Now, just to get into the long and short of it here, these codes are done using hex code. I have this Windows calculator on the right. If you click here and go to programming, this will give you the calculations or anything that you need for it. You'll see the spot here, hex and dec. The code is done using hex code. If you want to get a number for the hex code, this is how you can do it. Long story short, the game works at 60 frames per second. So anything like fire rate that goes off time, let's say you want it to fire once every half a second, that's 30. And then the hex code tells you that 30 in hex code is 1E. Now just to go to this first one here is basically the master sheet. All of the codes are here. This is how you get the AP, but as I'm showing for the first one, this is unsigned that caps at FFF hex code, which translates to 65,535. This is the health, not the AP. The AP divides this by 4. So putting all Fs at 65,000 only actually gives you 16,000 health, which I also have explained for the actual copy. As you can see, the AP for the other one has the code that matches this spot here, but then this other spot has symbols and there is X's for the left side. The X's are the ones you have to change. You can't change the rest. But so just you'll also see that a bunch of these spots for the active code have slashes. Anything with these two slashes is not pulled through or kept. These are programming comment lines which the code ignores when it runs. So currently, this is not affecting the health. As soon as I do this and get rid of those and save this, this is now an active change. So if you don't want to change a stat, like let's say you just want to practice at first with changing the size or something, all of these having the slashes on the sheet are not pulled in. You deactivate the code by putting the slash. Now just to go through each one and then you can mess with it on your own. So yep, just to read through each one, for the left side master codes, we have the AP, the behavior, which you won't touch. I have 3 examples here of what you basically make this a 0 and then input 2, and it copies the behavior of the bike MT. This is a joke, it's not going to shoot. 18 will be a karate chop spam. The reason I have this is if you want to just build a giant one to have a giant boss fight but don't want it to move, setting it to 19 and using this position code here and setting it to 0, which is a floating point, you can basically position the Nineball, the giant one, or just the turret form inside the middle of the room so you can't range it. And this position with the size is the only part that is a bit complicated. These, opposed to being hex codes, are floating points. As you can see here for this master sheet, I have it explained. Default size for Nineball Seraph is 1.3, which is about 1.3 times the size of the average AC. The base size 1 is actually the AC size in the game. You can make it 0.4 and so on, and this will give the height. So the first number here is its width, the second is its height, and the third is its length, or how deep it is. So to do the floating point part simple for you, I have as you can see under the size part, I have this site linked here. This is a floating point calculator. You can basically load up, this site here that I have here. You're going to go to the spot labeled "You entered." If I want it to be twice as tall as an AC, I'll put 2. This is the code you take, the 8 numbers for the hex code, and you put it into the floating point section. You'd put it here as I'm showing on this just master code sheet, and now it is twice as tall. Let's say you want it to be 3.75 times the height. It now gives you this, and this is the code you put there. You don't need to understand how it works. That just explains how it works. This is the same thing for the position. You need to use a floating point. 0 is dead center in the room. Positive 200 pushes it farther away, and that is the default starting spot, and negative moves it closer. There's no reason to move it closer. The only other reason besides making it default just in the middle for turret mode is that if you make it really big and don't want it to push you out, as it does have a push box, if you want to get really stupid, you can move it farther back, but it can also fall out. You can make Seraph big enough that both of you get pushed out and you're fighting in the void, which I showed for the video the other day, which was really cool, I think. But if you don't want that, these are ways you can mess with it and fix it. And now that's honestly most of this information that you really need. Just to go into the rest of this master code list. Yep, just the rest of this master code list for on the left. We have the size, and the next everything is broken down very simple. I actually went, as you can see, for the editing code list and labeled everything for you, which I normally wouldn't or don't for my own codes. Long story short, the first thing is the actual machine gun, which I've labeled as the double burst machine gun core. This fires from his core. It is always a burst fire. Keep that in mind. I also put those notes in there for you. The first spot for the weapons is the projectile ID. The master list has all of the projectile IDs that you may need listed here. These include the ones enemies use. These are player ACs. All of it's here. Certain weapons will break in certain spots. Like the dual machine gun core cannot use the giant disorder unit beam. Some things don't work in some spots. You can always mess with it, have some fun. But the main rule of thumb you're going to want to keep is that the missile lock and the regular weapon lock are different types when it's set for an MT. I do not have the code here to edit that. I'll attempt to find it later, and if I do, I will update the code. So for the regular machine gun core spot, you can use basically any weapon that isn't a like large MT type one and that isn't a missile. The missiles will fire, but they will not lock on and will just dummy fire forward and fly away. A pursuit missile will work because it works afterwards. But same thing for this missile here. It has to be replaced with an actual missile. Anything else will just dummy fire and not actually go at the person or track. So after the weapon type spot for this master sheet, the next is fire rate. The fire rate is done in frames, 60 frames a second. So 30 frames is once every half a second. 15 is 4 times a second, or once every quarter of a second. The machine gun core itself is burst fire, so it'll always try to fire 5. So even if you put it at 30, depending on how fast it fires, it may still be a continuous stream, which is typically how Nineball itself works, but you can mess with that. The next code is just, is it shell or energy damage? You make the last one 10 for shell or 20 for energy. This is also inside the other list. And the main list, again, I have comments in there as well to help out. Damage just works like damage. If you want it to be 500 in-game damage like the weapons when you're looking at it, you use the hex code for 500. You can go to this decimal spot, type 500. And now for the last 3 spots of damage, you will put 1 F4, and now it's 500 damage a shot. Heat is the same thing. Heat. Stun is how much it stuns, like, you know, when a pistol stuns you or missiles. I do have on this master list the default Nineball stats. So his AP, the health stat, is this, which translates to 10,000 AP. This is all of the stuff here. Missiles have 8 stun. The Moonlight Blade Wave is 22, and the Moonlight Blade itself is 60. Now, I didn't work out any other ones, but you can basically figure it out. Like, if you put the burst machine gun core as rifles, even with 8 stun, it's gonna be a pain in the ass like long-range handguns. Please try to go a bit low with that, because if you get nuts, you will get flung. You can make a missile swarm with like 300 stun, you'll get hit and yeeted across the room. Now, then besides that, that's really all you need to know to mess and play with this. You have floating point for size and position of the room. You have all of the weapon IDs here and the codes for damage and everything. This is all you need. It is this simple. It's gonna be like a 14-minute video. You mess with it for half an hour, and then then you're done. The only other thing to point out is that the name of this, so you can't save as a PNACH file. If you want multiple copies, copy the PNACH file and paste it. And when you're editing it, only press save. If you do save as, your computer will save it as a text file instead of a PNACH, and then the code won't work, as you probably don't have a program to convert it to a PNACH, but any text file can open it. Just use your computer's notepad. Open it like a text file. It looks like a text file. Funny thing, the master sheet here is actually a text file. The one on this left is actually the PNACH. It'll open fine. You're good. Just don't save as. Copy and paste if you want multiples. The name of this file has a bunch of numbers with a B at the end. If you put anything in front of that first number, it will not load, so you can use that if you don't want multiple folders to just say these ones are off. But after the B, you can put anything and it still loads, which is how I named them. Like how the one inside the Google Drive inside the link has a torpedo ball for the challenge I put on Reddit for people to fight. This one will be fresh hack copy. Just name it inside of the parentheses to keep your multiple copies in order, or name it what you want. And just if you don't want it active but want to keep them all inside the cheats folder, I type off in front of that first 9 to know that that code's off and get rid of it when I want it on. So if anyone has any questions on this, please leave me a comment. If there's anything else that they feel I didn't explain properly, I will put it into the description of this video. I will also try to reply to that comment, but I think it'll be nice if I also have it inside the description and edit it as we go. Thank you very much, everyone. Hey, it said the Google Drive will also be linked. The spot will be shared inside the description as well. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Goodbye.